What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Starting off a bit earlier this week. It is Monday evening, and USDJPY has been giving us some interesting price action. I want to go over what I believe is happening here and how we could take advantage of it. How this could potentially be a really nice continuation on the move I've been talking about for a few weeks now, which began down here. So, one important factor to note is that whenever we have a significant move, say it's this bullish move, at a certain point, institutions are going to take profits. They're going to start selling off their shares. And this is always going to happen at the top of the moves, right? The largest liquidity holder is going to have the most sway on the market. So, when we get to the top of these moves, we're going to see their profit taking. And a lot of times it ends up looking like this. But a lot of times retail traders might see this as something like, oh, now the trend is reversing. Now it's a bearish trend. And what ends up happening is something like this wick in this green zone that I've marked. What this represents is when traders begin to think, oh, now it's time to sell. That's usually when it starts looking quote unquote obvious. Right? People like to follow the patterns. They like to say, oh, it looks like it's going down, so I want to jump in on it. But usually it's like down here. People are trying to jump in on it. So imagine this candle right here, this candle with the wick. At a certain point, this was a fully blacked out bearish candle. It was like, it would have looked like the most bearish thing in the world. Like, oh, price is dumping. It's the end of this pair, right? So think about what's going through the average trader's mind at that point in time. They're like, oh, I got to catch this move. I got to sell. I got to sell. I got to sell. So there's a lot of people that are in FOMO trying to sell right there. And who's buying their shares? Institutions, right? Institutions are then buying back shares at a much cheaper price than where they were holding them. So, right? Institutions selling to take profit up here, invoking retail traders to sell down here and then buying the positions back. So this green zone I've marked is something of an order block where I believe there's a lot of short orders that have been bought up from retail traders. Now, last week I was talking about this zone right here and how I was thinking beyond this, we might come up and go straight through this zone, but we wicked off of it perfectly, which then had me thinking, maybe there's a possibility we actually come back down here and take more volume. But what we ended up seeing right here is a subtle but noticeable imbalance. Okay? Now, what this tells me is that these orders might be trapped and they don't want to untrap them, which could this could provide a really excellent springboard to actually take this into the levels we've been talking about, like this negative 0.27, above 151, and even 152, which would be price discovery on this pair. So what I think could be happening here, given that off of this wick even, we didn't end up breaking this zone, is if we hold this zone, if this imbalance remains valid, we're going to push up through this. Whereas if we push up into these levels and we start rejecting again, if we can't break this ceiling, then we're going to see something very different play out. But given how this wick worked, given how, again, we wicked even to the high and then came back down to this point, to these imbalances, and didn't close below this level again, we didn't get back into the box, I feel like there's a lot of volume stacked up here. So with that, just a quick update on this pair. I think it's very likely that we continue this bullish move from here. But again, you never know for sure. That's just what I think logically might play out. But counter perspective, because it's always important to note that like the market's going to do whatever it wants. We can't break above this, and then the next point of call would be here. Or here even. It would be to want to see these zones be broken on the downside and then potentially along off of that. But what I'm thinking, especially given these zones right here, is that not all of the shares have been sold off, obviously. So I think there's a lot of shares being held right here and a lot more shares were accumulated in this zone, which means the best place to be selling off these accumulated shares would be at these higher prices. So I think we might be heading to the negative 0.27 at this point in time, but we're going to have to wait and see. So with that, let me know if this is making sense to you. Let me know if you see something different, or if if you agree with this. With that, I wish you happy trading and enjoy your week. Peace out.